Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So this is the video for my mini project. There are three conditions of soil that I use. The first one is semi-moist soil, next dry soil, and the last one is moist soil. The objective for the moisture content test is to determine the moisture content of soil sample. The objective for the particle density test is to determine the specific gravity of soil. The objective for the particle size grading and texture is to determine the percentage of different grain size contained within the soil. The objective for the field density test is to determine the dry density of soil. And the last one is for the permeability test. The objective is to determine the coefficient of permeability of fine grained soil. First, I take the mass of the container that I use. Then, I put some of the soil sample on the container. After that, I spread the soil sample all over the container so that it can dry up easily. Then, I take the mass of the container plus wet soil. After that, I put it outside under the sun for about 24 hours. After 24 hours, I took back the soil sample and then I take the mass of the container plus dry soil. So, this is the data that I get from this experiment. The water content is calculated by mass of wet soil subtracted with mass of dry soil divided by mass of dry soil and then multiply 100. First, I take the mass of the empty bottle. Then, I put some of the soil sample into all three bottles. Next, I take the mass of the bottle plus the dry soil. After that, I pour some water until it reaches about half of the bottle. And then, I leave it for about 1 hour to release all the bubbles. After 1 hour, I took the container back and shake it. Then, I pour the water into the container until it full. Then, I take the mass of the bottle plus soil plus water. After that, I empty the bottle and clean it properly. Then, I fill the bottle entirely with water. Make sure there are no interrupt air bubble. Lastly, I take the mass of the bottle plus water. So, this is the data that I get from this experiment. The value of specific gravity is calculated using M2 minus M1 divided by M4 minus M1 minus with M3 minus M2. First, I take the mass of the can and the mass of the can plus soil. Then, I take the diameter of the pen and nails that I will use to make the set of sieve. Next, I make hole using nail at the bottom of the box with different size, which are 1 cm, 0.4 cm, 0.3 cm, and 0.2 cm. So, this is the set of sieve that I will use for this experiment. After that, I take the mass of sieve. Then, I put the soil sample in the first sieve and shake it. And I repeat the same for the second, third, and last sieve. So, this is the soil after sieving process. After that, I take the mass of sieve plus soil. This table shows all the data collected during the laboratory test. Based on the data, we can obtain the value of percentage retained and cumulative percentage passing. First, I measure the diameter of the can. Next, I measure the height of the can. Then, I take the mass of the can. After that, I take the mass of the tray. So, this is the location that I use to conduct this experiment. Next, I hammer the can using hammer until the can is full with soil. So, this is the can look like after the process. Then, I take out the can carefully using the trowel. Then, I take the mass of the can plus the wet soil. Then, I put some of the soil sample on the tray. Next, I measure the mass of the tray plus wet soil. After drying process, I take the mass of the tray plus dry soil. So this is the data that I get from this laboratory test. The value of wet density is calculated using total mass divided by total volume. Meanwhile, the value for the dry density is calculated using mass of solid divided by total volume. First, I cut the top of the bottle. So, this is the bottle after cutting process. Next, I make hole at the bottom of the bottle using nails. After that, I put some of the soy sample into the bottle and then I pour some water into the bottle to make the soy become more saturated. Next, I measure the diameter and the length of the soy sample. Finally, I pour the water again and record the time when the water reaches each level point. I repeat the same procedure for the second sample. So, this is the data that I get from this experiment. The value of K is calculated using the provided formula. Next is the discussion. For the water content test, the average of water content equal 32.67%. This shows that soil contains 32.67% of water. For the precaution, first, label the container to minimize confusion. And the last one is weigh all the mass accurately. For the particle density test, average specific gravity equal 6.46. Knowing specific gravity will help determine how porous it is or how many voids it has. For the precaution, first, jar must be completely full when filling up, and outside of the jar must be dry. Next is for the particle size grading and texture. The percentage retained are 12.08%, 14.50%, 40.76%, and 12.39%. For the precaution, first, hole need to be in the same size, and carefully shake the soil to avoid the soil from spread out. Next is for the field density test. The average of wet density is 2066.74 kg per meter cubic and the average of dry density is 303.37 kg per meter cubic. This shows that the soil has more pore space. For the precaution, first, make sure that the steel can is full with soil and make sure that soil is placed under the sun. And the last one is for the permeability test. The average of permeability is 7.725 exponent negative 4 cm per second. For the precaution, first, stand by the stopwatch and pour water first to make sure that the soil is saturated. For the conclusion, the objective for all of the experiment is achieved. The advantage of conducting this mini project, I learned how to perform experiment with repurposed material, and I also able to learn how to write a report on this experiment. So that's all from me. Thank you for watching.